Assalamu alaikum. I'm Corey Saylor with the Council on American Islamic Relations. And before I say anything, I just want to thank Muslim American Society and the Islamic Circle of North America for putting on an excellent convention this weekend. I know anytime that I can walk away having learned things from the great speakers that they've been able to present, I'm particularly grateful for that, and I hope the community walks away empowered and ready to do the work on the ground that needs to be done. So what I want to talk about right now is dealing with Islamophobia in the United States. It's a well established that it's a reality on the ground. CARE published a report earlier this year in which we showed that over a 4-year period, over $119 million had been given to organizations whose full-time job it is to smear the Islamic faith in the United States. Now, these organizations have had some success, but for the most part, we have institutions like MAS-ICNA, CARE, and others to push back against them. And that's what I want to talk to you about right now. What is the role that each of us can play in pushing back against this phenomena? The first thing to do is to recognize this is nothing new in the history of the United States. It's an unfortunate reality that in the United States, minorities have always faced discrimination. You go back to the 1800s before the Civil War, the things that were said about Catholics sound almost exactly like what's being said about us today. Look at World War II, Japanese Americans were placed in internment camps. Everybody knows the struggle the African Americans went through for civil rights. So it's nothing new. In our report, Legislating Fear, which you can get from our website, www.care.com, you can see that we've already identified the groups that are at the core of pushing hatred against Muslims in this country. And now, what is your role? It comes in just a few separate parts. First and foremost, it's not to accept the status quo. This is not a point in this country's history where they get to decide to accept Muslims or reject Muslims. We're not some foreign entity to be discarded. We are a part and parcel of this nation. We have a lengthy history here. And we know from this history that what happens is that communities that stand up and defend themselves ultimately are those that win mainstream acceptance. And we also have to remember that because of this history of minorities being discriminated against, it may be us today, but I can guarantee you that that lens of discrimination will change to someone else tomorrow. And we want to be able to say that we Muslims held our ground. We did not allow the civil liberties gains that had been made in the past by other communities to be eroded. We were there, we stood the line, we made sure the next community is protected. So that's the first point. You want to make sure that you don't stay silent. The way you can do that is work with any institution that you like, be it MAS, be it ICNA, be it CARE. And when they ask you to take some kind of productive action, take it. It usually only takes a few minutes of your time, and it's a massive contribution. The other points are essentially lessons that we've learned from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So one of the first things that we know is that before he became a prophet, he was known as the trustworthy. He was the person in Mecca that people could come to for objective, peaceful resolutions to their problems. We want to be known as those people. Because if you think about it, most of our neighbors were introduced to our faith on 9/11 watching an airplane slam into a building. And we know from psychology that those powerful emotional moments tend to overwhelm sometimes the logical things we know. So someone may be comfortable knowing that Islam is a religion that teaches its followers to work well with everyone within society, to be peaceful, but that image that they have coming from 9/11 may overwhelm that. So if we do everything within our power to be that person, to be the trustworthy, then their knowledge that Muhammad or Amina is someone who is a person of great character can help overwhelm the atrocity that was committed on 9/11. And the last thing we have to remember is what I was taught early on when I converted to Islam, is that if you take Sharia and you boil it down to its most essential principles, it's two things: be a benefit to humanity, prevent harm from coming to humanity. We have to figure out how we best live that in the United States. It's not about be a benefit to Muslims, prevent harm from Muslims, although that's part of it. It's humanity. What can we do to be the people in our communities that are seen as the pillars, those people that everybody knows and everybody can turn to? When we think about those things and conduct our lives in that fashion and recognize that there are stereotypes about us that we have to overcome, and it may or may not be fair that we have those stereotypes on us. We just have to deal with the situation as it exists. When we do those things, then we too will be able to become a part, or Islam will be treated in an equal fashion among the other faiths in this country, and we'll be able to to better contribute the principles, the values that we bring to this country to make America stronger and to make sure that our nation going forward is able to project its best values to the world and not the fears that we've been projecting to the rest of the world since 9/11. So thank you very much for listening to my message. I've appreciated the opportunity to be here at the MAS-ICNA Convention in 2013 and participate and go home energized, and I hope that we have the opportunity over the next few years to push back against Islamophobia and make sure that it joins the other discredited forms of bigotry and prejudice that this country has already overcome.